Can you imagine it? Britain's biggest car manufacturer right now here in the UK, the factories, the prime suppliers are humming, they're ready to go. We were in September now when there was a new plate change, loads of cars due to hit the showrooms in the streets proudly wearing the new 75 plate, when all of a sudden, click, switch, somebody has hacked their system. And essentially they've switched off their entire IT system, not just here, but globally, and effectively they've had to stop production. Of course, as you may know, if you've been following the news, I am talking about Jaguar Land Rover, JLR. This has happened to them at the beginning of September. At the beginning of September, and as I record this, it is now the 17th of September. We are talking more than a couple of weeks later. So what's happening? Production is still paused, dealers are still struggling, suppliers are really sweating. How bad is it? How long is it going to go on for? Have they started production? Why did this happen? Why is it happening? What could they have done about it? What can they do about it? Let's get into all of that right after this.
A brown car guy.
Right, so what actually happened? On 1st or 2nd September, early in the beginning of September, JLR disclosed a cyber incident and proactively shut down systems to contain it. That decision basically throttled manufacturing. It stopped it completely, and even retail as well. This triggered a controlled phase restart plan to basically restart their IT from the ground up all over again. But it was phased, and the company initially said that no data had been leaked, nothing had gone out, but then they later said that some data had been affected, is what they've actually said. So the UK cybersecurity authorities, the NCSC, I think, they are involved in this investigation. So this shutdown is still ongoing. It's still ongoing right now. And JLR has said the pause will run until at least 24th of September, so until next week. This stoppage will then be over 3 weeks by that time. Now, they're saying that they are doing a controlled restart across global operations, and this will take time. So it's not a simple case of rebooting it and then restarting everything again. This is taking time to make sure that they're doing carefully and properly across the system. JLR's UK plants typically push out 1,000 vehicles, 1,000 new vehicles a day. So estimates suggest that we're talking about a loss in revenue in terms of £72 million per day whilst these factories sit idle. And over 3 weeks, that means you're talking about, between 1.5 to say 2 billion, maybe more. And this is before you're talking about even the actual profit margins, the mix or recovery, or the cost of rebooting everything and restarting everything. So we're talking big numbers basically. And if you want to put that into context, they're losing £2 billion. Well, last year their entire revenue was £29 billion. So it's a significant chunk. Let's be honest, right? The other thing was that they couldn't even register cars. So this was a big problem because this happened literally at the beginning of September when people went into the dealerships expecting to get their brand new Range Rovers and what have you, with the fresh 75 plate so they could rock it home and show off to all their friends and neighbors that they got the latest plate on it, only to be told that they couldn't have their cars because they couldn't re-register it. So that sucked really, and it was a big problem, of course. Now what's happened is that technically they're still struggling to do that, but what dealers have done is they've started DVLA manual registration workarounds to make it happen. But that does mean that there are delays and there's a backlog because it's slower and it takes longer to do that. So it's still causing problems there. But no, if the cars are in stock, or if you already ordered one, you can get it registered, but it might take a bit longer. Did this impact just the UK? No, it was a global thing. It impacted all of their factories, and they're having to restart it gradually, slowly across all of their plants around the world. Who did this? Who is responsible for this? So far, there's no official confirmation, and we don't also know if there was a ransom demand, for example. JLR hasn't actually labeled it ransomware in public, so we don't know if that was the case, although like they admit that some data was accessed, because typically, shutting a system down or accessing your data, the hackers will normally go, well, give us X amount in crypto, whatever, and we'll give you that back. But of course, there's an investigation ongoing, and of course, they wouldn't want to say that publicly. Anyway, there are groups out there that have been responsible. If you remember, this happened to Marks and Spencer's not very long ago, and it set them back a whole long time as well. All their online stuff went down. I think there's organizations, I think they're like Scattered Spider, Lapsus Dollar, Shiny Hunters, people like that. Don't know who they are, don't know how they operate, but they're out there and they do these things. Now, you may be asking that when I've just said that they could be losing up to £2 billion worth of revenue, well, if it is ransom, I don't know whether or not they're telling us, but if it is the case, why not just pay them off? Well, there's 3 reasons why they can't do that. First of all, it might not work. Paying doesn't guarantee a working description or deletion of stolen data. Once it's out there, once they've got it, if you pay them, it doesn't guarantee they're going to give it back to you. It doesn't guarantee also that they'll reboot your entire system or let go of it without leaving, back doors and stuff like that to get back into it, or to sabotage in it, or time bombs, if you like, stuff like that. I don't mean time bomb like literally a bomb, but I mean like in terms of a program or a bug or a piece of software or an app or something like that. UK guidance says don't pay. There's a legal risk because, for example, if say the hackers are from Russia, I don't know if say, I'm just speculating, but for example, if they are, currently we have sanctions against Russia. So if you are paying somebody in Russia, then technically you're contravening that sanction, which is effectively a criminal offense. And the government says you can't do that. The third reason not to do it is because you're basically painting a target on your back, because if you give in and you pay, then they go, right, okay, well, this company just paid, so let's hit them again, and then they'll pay and we'll charge them even more. So this is why you may ask, well, why don't they just pay it and get everything sorted? Those are the reasons why they're not doing it. Hope you're enjoying this video. Make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe if you're not already doing so, and support independent automotive journalism channels like mine. You can do that at patreon.com, coffee.com, or taking out a subscription right here on YouTube. Or you know what, better still, you can go and buy my books. I've got 3 books out now. They're all on Amazon. They're all available to buy. More details on this are in the description, but buying any of these books will certainly help. Thanks so much for watching. The other thing you may ask is, like, this company is suffering a 3, maybe even longer, 3-week shutdown, maybe longer, like I said. Has that ever happened before? Well, it happened obviously in COVID. We had factories literally furloughed for months, if not a year or whatever. But other than that, this is unprecedented, in fact. Now, this sort of stuff has happened. Toyota apparently shut all 14 of its plants in Japan for 1 day. Apparently there was a hack in 2022 that caused that, but they were back up and running within 24 hours. Honda had something similar, multi-site disruption in 2020. They recovered in days. I think Renault, Nissan has had something similar in 2017, something like that. But they've all been short-term, like a day, 2 days, something like that. Nobody has ever experienced 3 weeks or potentially 3 weeks plus of an involuntary shutdown. And why would it hurt a manufacturer so bad? Why is it so problematic? Why is it causing such a bigger impact on the company? Well, modern car making is a giant, well-timed jigsaw puzzle that all the pieces have to come and mesh in at the right time in the right place and in the right way, and that's all done through IT. So because we have this process in manufacturing called just in time. Well, literally, if you've ever been to a factory, you will see the assembly lines that go down. The parts that are required for that point in the assembly are delivered to that place just in time for when the assemblers or the robots need that part. So so it's all very precise, it's all very structured, it's all very organized. And it boils down to when it needs the part, how it's installed, when it moves to the next one. But then when does the part get there? Where does the part come from? When does it delivered? When is it ordered? When is it made? So there's so many aspects of this that is controlled by these very, very complicated IT systems. So And then, of course, even at the selling end, you're linked to the DVLA and all of this. So there also you have a problem. So so you can have the cars and the assembly lines. People could just be standing around there, but they can't do anything. Even though you have the metal, you have the tools, you have the people. You're probably thinking, why not just switch on the assembly line? You can't do that because you may not have the parts. You won't get them in time. Blah blah blah. It just won't work. So the workforce has literally been sent home, and they're just sitting at home twiddling their thumbs right now. And because it's so complicated, because it's so intermeshed and so complex, this is why JLR had to basically shut the entire system down and rebuild it effectively from the ground up, putting in the safeguards or whatever to make sure that hopefully this sort of thing won't happen to them again. What does this mean for JLR, the company, and especially Jaguar? Well, timing could hardly be worse. I mean, Jaguar, as you know, has gone on to hiatus. They've taken a year off, maybe longer, to come back as a full EV brand. So they've suffered controversy in the headlines. They've suffered no sales, basically, because they're not selling anything, well, apart from a few markets. So it's bad news for them. Overall, that's going to hit the margin anyway for JLR for the year 2025. But I think that, with losing the Range Rover, and don't forget, we also already had the problem with tariffs, where they had to stop sending a bunch of Range Rovers over to America, so they had to sit on a lot of stock until we got a better deal with America. So that also hurt them. So all of this means that, it's really, really not good for essentially what is the last bastion of what used to be a great industry for the UK, which is the car industry, actual car built here. I know some of you are going to say, well, it's not a British company because it's owned by Tata. Yes, but majority of what it does, its operations, is still here in the UK. JLR is probably going to have to ring fence Land Rover, especially, so that they can separate it out from any losses the Jaguar is going to suffer. And then this may start to ignite that question again, which I've discussed in other videos, about what does that hold for the future for Jaguar, if any future at all. The other problem is that there is supplier stress, of course, because all the suppliers, all the industry that feeds this giant mechanism to build these cars are all small component companies and component suppliers, and there's a distribution network, which I think is actually DHL actually do all of that work, because I've actually been to these factories. And all the companies that produce like a single grommet for a single part that goes onto a certain car, it may be a small company doing that, and all of a sudden they're sitting around not doing anything for a month, because they don't need to build these parts. So what's happening right now is a lot of those smaller companies are crying out for help to the government, and I think even the trade unions are trying to speak up on their behalf to maybe organize some kind of a furlough type system to keep them going, because some of them are already saying that they could be close to bankruptcy, and you don't want that, because when JLR does start production, it expects those parts to then immediately start coming back in again, so that they can hit the ground running and carry on making stuff. But if they find that, well, this ex-grommet, that company's gone bust, well, that's going to hold up the whole assembly line. That'll be it. So then they'll have to stop it again. So they don't want that. The industry doesn't want that. Let's see if the government will step in and help those little companies to keep them going. Could this happen again? Yeah, it could, because we've seen this happening now with major companies like Marks and Spencer's and now JLR. And as I've said that previously, Toyota and Honda were also hit with something similar. So it could happen. So I guess it's just a case of, the industry doubling down on, network segmentation, firewalling, offline backups, finding all the back doors and everything, and just greater cyber security to protect themselves. So there you go. So I hope that this has answered some of the questions about what you might be thinking, what's happening with JLR. It's not good news. It hasn't been good news for JLR for a while, but this is particularly couldn't have come at the worst possible time. And the hope is that they can get that production restarted again on 24th of September next week, and hopefully that will be in time to ensure the survival of the components industry and suppliers that have to feed that machinery. Otherwise, it will cause further problems. So yeah, tough times. That's what's happening. Let me hear your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Shout out time, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you enjoy my content, why not get involved? Buy me a coffee. You can do that at either of these links. Or if you're watching on YouTube, buy me a thanks or take out a membership. It all helps. It really does.